What up, everybody? BMF Season 4, Episode 8 starts off with Meech, Terry, and Loco still in Mexico, thinking they're about to shoot it out with the federales, but it was the cartel pulling up to pick them up. But at first they were questioning Loco about how he got out of prison and if he was snitching on them. Then they wanted to leave T behind because he let the child go and the child was a spy and the federales were on their way. So Meech had to get involved, letting Loco know that he can't leave his brother in Mexico. So Loco convinced the cartel to let Terry come along, saying him and Meech were his biggest earners in the US. So with only 2 episodes left in Season 4, the storyline from Mexico is finally about to come to an end, with Meech and Terry supposed to be on their way home. Either though, we know something else is still going to happen while in Mexico, because the fact in episode 1, T had got back to the US while Meech was still in Mexico. Back in the States on the current timeline, everybody's looking for Purdy after she checked herself out of rehab last episode, with Meech and T disagreeing on how to handle the situation, with T saying they should cut their losses and that Purdy's fallen and she can't get up, a popular Steve Urkel joke from that time, and calling Meech Captain Save-A-Ho, the title of a popular E40 song from that time. But Meech let Terry know that he had promised Purdy that he wouldn't give up on her and left T in charge to run the Atlanta operation while Meech tended to the Purdy situation. Only for Purdy to show up at Trail's house after leaving rehab looking for drugs, telling him that they tried to put her in rehab. And notice when they first showed Trail's house zoomed out, his bodyguard Kano was dumping a body into the lake. Possibly somebody that Trail killed, or maybe a female that overdosed in Trail's house, or another female he gave bad coke to and died. But Purdy gave Trail head and let him smash so she could get drugs. And the next morning when Meech and his crew came looking for Purdy, they were laid up together with a whole bunch of coke spread out on the table. At this point in time, Meech convinced Purdy to come with him and put her in the care of Tina and Maria to watch over her and keep her out of trouble. But like how T called Meech Captain Save-A-Ho, there's another song from that time by Project Pat called Don't Save Her. It says she don't want to be saved, don't save her. And at the end of the day, Purdy didn't want to be saved either, because later when Purdy was about to go on stage for her rehearsal, Lucky brought her a package that was sent to Purdy by what Lucky said was a big man. So that was most likely Kano who brought the package, and the note on the package said, "Knock 'em dead." So Purdy took a few bumps and tried going on stage, but collapsed after a few seconds and was pretty much dead on the spot. Ashley tried to resuscitate her and they got her to a hospital, but they weren't able to bring her back to life. And when Trail got the news that Purdy was dead from Kano, he told Kano that if he can't have her, no one will. But before that happened, Meech had Purdy scheduled for a radio interview to promote her album re-release party, letting everybody know that it was at Platinum Palace, when Trail called in, and him and Meech ended up having words over the radio, and the DJ said the name Big Meech. And while this was going on, none other than B. Mickey was just getting into the Atlanta area and heard all this going on the radio. So B. Mickey knew he was going to be able to find Meech at Platinum Palace that night. After Purdy's death, when Meech and everybody was at the hospital, none other than Detective Bryant came walking through the hospital, smoking a cigarette in the hospital, and walked up just as Meech and Terry were arguing, and said that they were still bickering at each other after all these years, like they did when they were kids on the baseball field. And we already know that will also continue to the end of the storyline, because we saw Meech and T in the flash forward scene from when they were in jail, going back and forth on whether to take a plea or take it to trial. And at this point, things got real disrespectful, with Bryant calling Purdy a dead and Meech bringing up Bryant's dead son, Kevin, with Bryant walking off and letting Meech know that his time was ticking. Bryant was so confident because little did Meech know that Laz was snitching and giving Bryant the information to all their stash spots. Either though T tried to warn Meech earlier in the episode that Laz was MIA, but Meech didn't think anything of it and told T that Laz answers to him and not T. And because Meech didn't take heed to T telling him that something was up with Laz being missing, all their stash houses in Atlanta got raided when they were all fully stocked with stacks of bricks. Keep it in mind there's been a drought prior to this because of the beef in St. Louis. So with that being resolved, it looked like they got a new shipment in off camera. Keep it in mind last episode they were down to their last and Laz got busted with 2 keys. So it looks like they most likely got a new shipment into Atlanta. But the Red Dogs and Bryant got it all. Not to mention most of their Atlanta dealers are now in police custody. But that still wasn't going to be enough to connect Meech to the drugs. So Bryant forced Laz to wear a wire to talk to Meech to try to tie Meech to the stash houses. So Laz showed up at Platinum Palace wearing a wire when B. Mickey was watching everything go down from off in the cut and could tell something was off about Laz. But similar to B. Mickey and how he couldn't go through it wearing the wire, Laz had a similar response and walked off before Meech could say anything about the stash houses. Then B. Mickey followed him outside and saw Laz getting rid of the wire. So B. Mickey convinced Laz to take a ride with him, telling him that Meech sent him to talk to him to handle his situation with the cops. And something to keep in mind is that while riding with Laz, Laz brought up Bryant to B. Mickey, and B. Mickey was definitely surprised about Bryant being in Atlanta. But now he knows that he has another enemy, Bryant, in Atlanta also. Then B. Mickey pulled over telling Laz they should smoke one, and when Laz lit his blunt, B. Mickey put on a glove, pulled out his gun, and smoked Laz, and told Laz that he don't smoke anymore. Keep it in mind how much B. Mickey used to smoke in the first couple seasons. Basically all he did was sit in his mama's basement and smoke weed. So B. Mickey ultimately did Meech and T a favor, killing a snitch. Keep it in mind he's been their shooter from day one. But his intention and reason for killing Laz was to put more heat on Meech and T, making it look like they killed an informant. And after B. Mickey smoked Laz, the Rough Riders anthem by DMX started playing in the background. So there was a lot of fire Easter eggs this episode. But the most fire Easter egg of the episode might have been when Keisha and Boom were walking through the club to meet one of Boom's connects when the song Money, Power, and Respect by the Locks was playing. While T was in Atlanta, Keisha turned her attention to Boom and got him some new suits to get him looking right, and they went to the club to meet up with one of Boom's connects named Giovanni, who gets product coming in through Texas. And Boom let Giovanni know that Keisha was his new business partner because he's trying to lay low. And later in the episode, T called Keisha from Atlanta checking in on her, and Keisha lied to T telling him that she hadn't heard anything from Boom, but telling T that she has a new connect in Texas for him to meet. So Keisha's playing both sides with Boom and T to the fullest, taking advantage of 2 men at the same time. And T might keep falling for it, but Boom's not about to let Keisha keep playing him without retaliating. This episode, Meech also met up with Mao again, the LA weed man, and arranged for him to start moving white also, and for Meech to make a trip to LA. Keep it in mind, Meech is already scheduled to make a trip to LA to meet Loco's boss, Manuel. And the final storyline to cover from this episode is the storyline with Nicole and Lucille in Detroit, with Nicole pissed off about Lucille taking her money, and Lucille taking $2,000 of the $3,000 that Terry gave Nicole and giving it to her church, and using the other $1,000 on groceries, magazines, flowers, and new clothes. And taking that money caused her problems in the church because the congregation started gossiping about the clothes Lucille was wearing, and that her son's drug dealing might be funding her lifestyle. But the big problem was Lucille giving that $2,000 tithe to the church and not being able to give them an explanation about where the money came from. With Pastor Fleming ultimately coming back and reclaiming her position as pastor of the church. So Lucille's been full of pride all season and acting like her shit don't sting. But like the Bible says, pride comes before the fall. And now Lucille lost her pastor job. But notice how the church didn't mind taking that $2,000, either though they wanted to know where it came from. They didn't give Lucille her money back when they fired her either. So I think they probably were already intending on bringing Pastor Fleming back in, and that's probably why they already started pressing Lucille last episode about not paying enough tithes. And at the end of the episode, Nicole's water broke, definitely earlier than it was supposed to, and she started calling for Lucille to help her. And with all the problems there's been between Lucille and Nicole going back for a minute now, I think Lucille getting humbled this episode and Nicole going into labor about to give birth, I think moving forward, Nicole and Lucille are going to have a much better bond and relationship. And there you have it. Leave your thoughts, theories, and predictions in the comments.